And this is the exact process the body follows to build muscle. As simple as that.
Once your goal is sharply but realistically defined, all that remains is carrying out your plan. In other words, you'll never know how good you might have become unless you try. So let's get with it.
If you're watching this video, it's time to learn a little bit more about building muscle, about bodybuilding, and the science of training. If you're new here, we're already approaching the 7 principles behind the process of building muscle. We talked about identity, then we talked about intensity, and today we're going to approach the third one, which is called duration. Basically, the relationship between volume and muscle growth, or the time you spend working out and muscle growth. And I must say, this chapter is really simple, but whenever you try to execute it, it's really counterintuitive because of everything that we hear and what we're used to doing. Usually the more the better, or we want to spend more energy to look better because that's what we hear we should do. But this just shows the exact principles that address our nature as humans, the processes that occur in our bodies in general, and the economics of muscle growth. And I promise it's not boring. It's really not boring, even though it has economics in the name. And by the way, I am an economics major, so I really shouldn't say that. I love economics. So to understand how muscle growth works, we understood the identity of the human body and the human mind. After that, we understood what type of stimulus you need to trigger muscle growth. So we understand our nature, and by understanding our nature, we know what we have to do to cause muscle growth. We understood the what, and we understood the how. But now, the question is, how much should we do? That's what we're going to address today, basically. And to understand how much we should do to cause muscle growth, we have to understand that we have limited amount of energy resources in our body. So literally anything that you do involves the use of energy. To think, to talk, to move. And with that, it's clear that the body uses the energy as efficiently as possible. And what do I mean by efficiency? We really got to go back to our roots. Back when we were fighting lions and trying to survive. We didn't have access to that many resources in terms of food. And we had to spend a lot of energy to go get that energy source that helps us live. So one of our main concerns was to go ahead and gather the energy necessary for us to engage in any activity. And second to that, not in importance, but when you think about survival of a certain species, what else do you have to do? Well, you got to make more of you, so reproduce. All we're thinking about is the individual survival, because that in itself guarantees the survival of the species. So we have to eat to have the energy to protect ourselves from enemies. We need energy for our natural processes that happen in our body. And we need energy to reproduce and to get more of us so that we can keep going ahead and expanding ourselves as a species. That's all. I remember when I was in school and a lot of the books that showed this primitive version of ourselves showed muscular man. And it doesn't really make any sense. Why? What in muscle growth helps you survive? Well, you would say if you have more muscle, you have more strength. But that's not really true. Up to a certain point, yes, muscle is going to help you strength-wise. But carrying more muscle will just make you need more energy to do the same exact things you would do with less body weight, for example. And if you look at other primitive civilizations, if they had access to a lot of food or they could eat more, they just started getting fat. And that's not because it's a bad thing. That's what the body wants to do. Because it's thinking, we don't know when we're going to have food again. So let me store this and make sure that I'll have enough energy for when I'm not able to kill another animal. I'm not able to have access to energy sources. And why am I saying all that? Muscle building has nothing to do with survival. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So all the energy in your body is going towards anything else but building muscle. And that's what I want you to understand first. Building more muscle is not natural to the body. It's not something that the body wants to do because it has nothing to do with survival whatsoever. So of course, even if you engage in a workout that's efficient and it's going to trigger muscle growth, the energy that you spent needs to be replenished. And the body's priority won't be to build more muscle using that energy that you acquired through food and through rest. It's going to go to everything else that's priority first. So the energy stores that we need just to function. And then if you have energy left, it goes towards building muscle. So looking at things through this angle, do you understand that the more energy that you spend at the gym, the more energy you'll need to recover just from the damage that you caused, and then after that, you're going to be able to use energy to cause muscle growth. So the more you do, the more you're delaying the process of muscle growth because all the energy that you spent needs to be replenished first. And once it's replenished, muscle growth can occur. And here it's not about more is better or less is better. Mike's argument is actually that the precise amount to stimulate the muscle growth is better. Not more, not less, the precise amount, which he argues is 1 set to complete failure. And this is something that connects with what we talked about in the intensity chapter in the last video. When we used the example of marathon runners and sprinters, we understood that the duration of the activity is directly connected to the intensity of the activity. So, if you want to do something intensely, which is our goal, we understand now that the high intensity stimulus is necessary for muscle growth. Can you do that high intensity activity, whatever that is, for a long period of time? No, you really can't. Because a long period of any activity is related to resistance, not intensity. Intensity can only be done in a short period of time. You're not able to do sprints for 10 minutes straight, right? You can do a 30-second sprint and then rest, and then do another one, rest, even a 1-minute one, whatever that is. But you can do a sprint for an hour. You just can't. That 1 set to failure that Mike talks about is enough of a stimulus that it doesn't spend that much energy that hinders the process of muscle growth, but it sends the signal so the body adapts to whenever you go work out again. I need to grow. There's damage that's been done to my body, and I need to be stronger next time. Versus if you engage in a long session with a lot of sets, whatever, not only are you delaying your recovery, which is ultimately what's going to help you grow, you're actually giving your body a chance to use your tissue, your existing tissue, as a source of energy. There's no loss of tissue in growth. There's only building tissue. So the precise amount will build tissue. More than the precise amount can actually decrease the amount of tissue in your body. But here there's the part where I don't really understand what the process looks like. Because in terms of energy, calories, right, coming from food, if you are in a surplus, doesn't that mean that doing, for example, 2-3 sets per body part, as long as you're still in a caloric surplus, you'll still have energy to build more muscle? So why not do more? That's the thing that kind of tricked me in a little bit. But then again, I thought a little bit more. And while we're trying to build more muscle, we're also doing other things. We're living, right? We're existing. We're doing any sort of movement. We're thinking. We're engaging in activities. They also use energy. So the energy is not only being distributed, but it's going to prioritize, again, everything else but building muscle. Think about the last time you had a really, really rough workout and you're sore. Even though you can be in a surplus, eating a day, 2, 3, 4, whatever, you can be sore for a really long amount of time. And soreness is not correlated to building muscle. It's related to the damage, which, exactly what Mike argues, soreness might be actually something negative for muscle growth. But what I'm saying is, it's not only about having the energy. It's about how the process of recovery occurs, how much time that takes, what it entails, and how the body is going to distribute the energy towards the recovery and building muscle and doing everything else. And that's the part where we're going to dive in as we go further. But for now, we understand building muscle, not the priority. So everything else is going to come first, and the energy that we use is limited. So the more energy you spend, the harder it is to build more muscle. And now that the economics of muscle growth is clear, we got to understand the workout and the inflammation that comes from the workout is a stress. It's a form of stress. And to understand how we're going to recover from that stress, we got to understand how the body recovers from any type of stress at all. As we know now, Mike is the king of efficiency. He's the king of studying and looking at things deeper. And he uses just the best examples that anyone could come up with because they're simple to understand and they address the point precisely. Another stressor that anyone can relate to is tanning. You expose your skin to the sun, and then up to a certain point, your body's going to respond positively. So really, what is a tan? That's the body's way of using its resources to cope with the same stressor better in the future. The tan is the equivalent to an increase in muscle size or strength, because that is the body's way of coping with the stress of the workout. Today, I hit a good workout, I hit it intensely, and I'm recovering. So next time I go to the gym, I'll be better equipped to engage in the same stressor. The same thing with a tan. And when you spend too much time in the sun, your skin's peeling off, you're all red, and you can't touch anything, you're just burnt. That's the equivalent to overtraining. You're really not getting any better response from the body for future occasions where you're going in the sun or you're going to the gym. That is just a response of the body saying, hey, I'm not able to cope with that much stress, and the system basically breaks down in a way. Just through that small comparison, we see that it's a pattern. It's not only about building muscle, but the systems that the body uses or the processes that the body uses as an adaptation process or just recovery in general, they're the same throughout different stimulus. Right off the bat, we can think about a few others. If you eat enough amount of food, so a good amount of food that it won't make you feel sick, well, you feel good and your body can direct the energy towards everything that you need. But what happens when you overeat? Well, digestion problems, you can spend a little more time in the restroom, you know what I mean? So there's really no secret. That's the body's nature. It's how you function, not only in muscle building, but in anything that requires adaptation. To do more and more and more, expecting that you're gonna grow, it's just going against your body's nature. And really, you're not gonna win that because that's how you're built. The whole point of this series is to learn. And everything that I'm saying here is based on Mike's view. We're discussing it, but I'm just showing you how Mike sees things or saw things and what he explained. There are more studies today that show the relationship with volume. There's this concept of maximum recoverable volume. So don't take this as absolute truth, but take this as a valuable lesson to understand intensity and its relationship with human nature. This content is from the 80s, from the 90s, so of course we made big advancements in terms of science and understanding how the body works. But that doesn't mean that what's said here isn't valuable. It also doesn't mean that it's the absolute truth. One thing that has nothing related to do with the content. When I make these videos, there's days where I feel like I'm so sharp and things are flowing, things make sense. And today, in the shortest chapter, and it's a simple concept, like I understand it fully, and I've read this book, so I should feel like I'm doing a good job. But today especially, work was crazy. So I go to work, I come home, I do everything that I need to, and then I have to record a video, and I was like, all right, I'm ready, let's do it. But fuck, I don't know that I did a good job, but as long as I pass the message, I feel like that's good enough. And this is something that I like to share because maybe you are someone that creates content too, or you feel like that in other areas of your life. When I come here, I'm really not trying to be perfect, but I am being consistent because I have this duty, this mission of sharing the knowledge and learning from what people say too. But again, it's not going to be perfect all the time. And it is fine as long as you keep improving. I'm going to look back at the video, I'm going to review it and be like, all right, here's where I'm missing out a little, this is what I'm doing good, and just capitalize on that. And showing up is really usually half the battle, so do what you got to do. All right, y'all, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.